Hello and welcome to the forum. You're watching MTA Gambia. I am Inspector Simanlo, the PRO of the Gambia Immigration Department. We are here today on MTA Studios on the GID Talkshow to discuss with you on very important matters that relates to the work of the GID and how does it have relevance to the public out there. Together with me today is CSI Musa M. Fati, the OIC of Community Engagement of GID, who would also take us through discussions about the GID's work and how does it have relevance to the society out there. Next to him is Inspector Suleiman Sambu, Deputy PRO of the GID, who also joined us in this discussion as we discuss important matters with you. Our last speaker in the studio is Senior Immigration Control Officer Sute Biba, who is also a staff at the Community Engagement Unit of GID, who will join this discussion. So do stay with us as we take you through very important discussions that relates to GID and its mandate, and how do we provide the service that we offer to you at the public. So Osi, just to start with you, this is the first episode of us being on the forum. Perhaps you can share with us, how do you feel to be on MTA Studios today?
Thank you very much, PRO, and also thank you to our viewers. My name is Musa M. Fati, Chief Superintendent, Officer in charge of Community Engagement at GID. We are here today to launch our program that is going to be bi-weekly on every Tuesday at MTA, where we're going to discuss with the general public on the services that we have at GID and what are the responsibilities of general public in terms of immigration management.
It's great to have you on the studio. We look forward to a very insightful discussion. Inspector Suleiman Sambu, you serve as Deputy PRO of GID. How does it feel to be on MTA Studios today?
Thank you so much, PRO. It's a great opportunity and a pleasure to be here. Mbadi lamwelal mbal kontona mbal tentula PRO ila nyinikaro kumata bake nyinkera kuti mianko nimfemu safo amu kuma baldi pour kana kafumol majang immigration kacha bundato mianko nata final ya pour kana nkakashalma sa kalamtandi na doko na doko bakeri nyambe na doko tamandi kanyami Immigration Department.
All right. That is Inspector Suleiman Sambu. So today you will speak in Fula. So today you drank milk before coming to the studios. How do you feel to be on MTA Studios?
Thank you very much, PRO. It's an honor to be part of this forum today. Musiban fulbe on jarama kala to mbawto mi laari de to kettoto min minen be Immigration Department garani on do yama MTA Gambia pour mi jewtide modon ko fa'i he ligge amen immigration heno min liggorta dum he hono min bawta on wallirde he haajuji mondi keboton into office amen to hono dum yarata ko dum min ngari on yewtade do hande pour mbawen yewtude pamodiren bari kala do yewtere wadaka pamodiral ala don a jarama PRO.
I would have said A, but then it will continue. So the GID Talkshow here will tell you through a lot of issues that GID does. We understand very well that we have offered so many services. And there are many people out there who wouldn't know what do we do at the GID level or how do we in fact operate internally. So it is important for us to share with you the work that we do and how can we always connect with the public to know what we're doing. So starting with OC, knowing that the GID had been established a long time ago, somebody out there may not know the basic history behind GID's establishment. So if you were to share with them some thoughts as to how those GID came into be, what would you say with them?
Thank you very much, PRO. Like you said, GID has been here since the independence in 1965. But at the time, it was a department under the Gambia Police until 1990, when the cabinet memorandum was passed to establish the department. And this was ascended to by the cabinet and then later to the National Assembly, and then the department was established. And since then, GID has been operating, but like I said, it was here since 1965, and we have already a legislature, that is Gambia Immigration Act of 1965. This is the legal framework that guides the daily operations of GID, and also in 1965 we also have another legislation, that is Citizenship and Nationality Act. This also guide our operations, and then in 1977 we also have another act, that is Aliens Registration Act. This also guide our operations, and in also 2008 we also have Gambia Refugee Commission Act. This also guide our operation. These are legal frameworks that guide the operation of GID.
Interesting. So it's just not the establishment of GID, but again, knowing that it is a legislative body that is also working on implementing certain legislative frameworks. Like he rightly mentions, GID implements the Immigration Act of 1965, together with the Alien Registration Act of 1977. We also implement the Refugee Act of 2008, and then together with all citizenship laws of how can somebody become a Gambian citizen. I think it's key for us to also perhaps put this in the context of the local language so people can know what do we do at that level. Sambu, you may please take us to the local language part.
Yeah, mbari lamuelal ka omu na osi la kubanke bediada bake nembena kumbena kuma kafula ala kuma ka wala nyente ko ay mim fo jam kuti mi anka kuma ata bake comme immigration department mu kafol de mi alon ko nim fem moy tolla be mararing na kaydi kola and then ila doko ni ajibe abe dending natara femu luwalla beje mi alon ko sarto la beje katama nim minna nga Citizenship Registration Act soto nga Gambia Immigration Act soto we have the Refugee Act yemu actual lati miliana ko nim fem wala be laring na doko be dende nyinala nimbe kuku kela nga tamande nyin nyim bukol nyin loi bukol le kan nga tamande wala kan ka jeko banku dingol saf anim fem yalan ko anata Gambia jang nim fem lu ndangol mimbe nala sabat lam fe jang Refugee Act ngol fanan na doko semben ka be tamande nyin bukol fenkola nga tamande nyin bukol wala kam so na nim fem na doko bebe tamande abel bebe laring bukol bukol mimba safena abel wala kam
jërëjëf Samu su tey yi me
ok jarama ama inspecteur Siman Lo e gonga ko aussi fati haali ko ɗo o lamdi ɗum o wi ko honɗum waɗi ha immigration dari honno immigration darori o wi ɗum gonga sa laari immigration ɓooyi because sa laari mbiɗa hitande de Gambia heɓine independent 1965 immigration ɗi woodi kono on tuma koye nder police wonno e nder Gambia police force immigration wonno wayi hanno kono fedde ni ɓe mbanno ɗum ɓe mbaɗi ɗum ɗo fedde ni ɓe mbaɗi ɗum sengo liggotoɓe to ɓe mbaɗa ɓe liggo kulle immigration kono fofta ko police aɓe uniforme police aɓe ɓe ɓornoto ko ha Allah waɗi e nde hitande 1990 e laamu ɗum yehi jooɗo e ministre ɓe jooɗi ko wiyete ko cabinet ministre ɓe président o jooɗi ɓe jewtaɓe mbi wondema ko gonga joni ɗo wonɗo no en tolnima saha mo gandanɗa hoore ma enen poti heɓde immigration e nder leydi men he nde ɓe kaali ha ɓe kawriti ɓe fof jaɓi wondema koko foti heɓade on tuma ɓe bindi ɓe naɓi ɗum to suudu député ɓe to nde ɓe naɓi to suudu député ɓe to ha ɓe jotti toon ɓenne jewti ha ɓe pamodiri on tuma no waɗa luwa wondema winda signa wondema yo joni immigration no foti heɓade ta ɓe gondani e police hunde wotere on tuma noon immigration darna hitande 1990 bili on tuma noon ha joni ɓe gaddi wona bomtarnugol ɗum tan ɓe darni luwaji goɗɗi ne ɗi gandanɗa hoore ma ɗin gayni liggue amen on no mi liggue o yaratani ko ɗin gayni liggue o ido luwa giɗi ɗo ar ɗum woni immigration act of 1965 on immigration act of 1965 waɗama luwa on aynata mine liggue amen ko hono min poti waɗirde liggue amen o gara tiɗima acte goɗɗo luwa goɗɗo darnaɗo biyeteɗo Citizenship as Nationality Act on ne komo 1965 on ne ko wallat yimɓe pour hollina yimɓe ayna mine golle amen pour mbawa andude ko hombo woni ɓiɗɗo Gambian e hombo woni foti heɓde ɓiɗɗo Gambian yaaji si ɗon iwine tiɗima ɓe gari ko wiyete ko Alien Registration Act ɗum woni hoɓɓe garoɓe ɓe leydi men he gimmoroɓe leyɗe mumen ɓe gara e leydi men ɗaɓɓere walla goɗɗum e goɗɗum ɓen hoɓɓe luwa hollimi hono min poti liggorde mumen min gayna ɗumen pour min danda ɗumen no fotiri wonirde ni on acte mo wiye Alien Registration Act o on komo 1977 o waɗa mani luwa den si on iwi ɗon ɓe gari in 2008 hitande 2008 ɓe moƴƴi Refugee Act o ko ɗum woni Refugee Act ɗum woni acte mo ganduɗa hoore ma gaynowo kollomi nomi poti liggorde yimɓe dokɓe ɓe haare giwi leydi mumen gari leydi Gambia ɗon jooɗi pour danda ɗo hakkillaji mumen danda ɗo koye mumen danda ɗo ɓiɓɓe mumen on acte wiyete Refugee Act ko ɗi woni mani luwaji darnaɗi ɗi ko ɗi luwaji min liggorta pour min mbawa okkude yimɓe ɓe liggue mo ɓe paala o a jarama.
Thank you so much, Sute. So also you've mentioned 4 legal instruments that the GID implements at the level of the department. Now, one would be very much interested to note what are the key things that each of these legislative frameworks would empower GID to do at its operational level. Now, talking about the Immigration Act of 1965, what particular functions does it specify for the GID to perform in this occasion?
Thank you very much, PRO. Like I said earlier on, Immigration Act is the guiding principle that guides the operations of the GID. This is where we derive our mandate from. And this, encompasses all the functions of the GID. It gives us our mandate, one of which is to control the movement of people in and out of the country and within the country. And also, it also guides us to issue national documents, such as national ID card and the passport, and also documents that we issue to non-Gambians, like the residence permit, also aliens registration card. We also have documents that we issue to non-Gambians, we call it non-Gambians ID card. This also guides us in the issuance of visa for those people who are also coming into the country. All right, the same instrument also guides us, to extend the stay of those who are given a visa and their stay is controlled. When they intend to stay longer, then you go to any immigration, nearest immigration post where your stay can be extended for a specific period of time. So there are a lot of functions that GID is doing through the guidance of the Immigration Act.
You've mentioned two important areas. You talked about the issue of the Act giving you the powers to be able to control the borders and also give out documentations. Now, if one was curious to ask, how does GID provide documentation? Does it have to be through just one unit, or it has different units that do the same work?
Yes, we have different units, but like the document issuance is under the Assistant Director General responsible for processing. Okay. Under him, you have a commissioner processing. So under commissioner processing, you also have other units that are like the commissioner responsible for passport, commissioner responsible for ID card. So, and the same commissioner will also be responsible for issuance of residence permit and also non-Gambians ID card.
Okay. Thank you so much. I think that would be very much important for people to note that part of the mandate of the GID is to control the borders, but again to also issue documentation. So you talked about the use of the ID card, residence permits, non-Gambian ID card, visas, and all other documents that we provide as a service to the public out there. We will allow Sambo to take us through that into...
Yes, biaro hila nga osie kumo memfaja kweta bake na nimfemo na immigration dokola ni ajibe tumando ni be sharing Gambia banko kanjang ni man ko fahami samuta ko maybe immigration la doko be dending nim femo ka kaytol dimo la be dan molti bare nim femo ka bemfo na doko nim femo a fanuta da fanuta le nka kuja malake immigration service ol siada bakel sa ni ajibe immigration la doko be dending ni nun taw nata banko kanjang da doko na Gambia Immigration Act ya doko ya sembentu ya immigration official kan konka je ko nim fen nata nyim banku kan ila kayti ko ni ila sabato nyim banko kan abedan immigration level anu banku dingol fanang Gambia Immigration Act ya doko di immigration ka je ko ni fen wuluta Gambia jang ila kayto ni ila kayti ko dal ako bebe dan immigration so nim femu ni be sabat la nyim banku kan wala mum banku dingoti ila fa kayto la ebita futala immigration wala man say doko dito lo ka je ko fem be sabat jang ni fem nata bonan blato nata sabat jang wala lafal sabat la nyim banku kan pour kayto soto ebita immigration wala be malarin kayti ko la membo ko wala kayto membo ko ID card kayto membo ko nim femu visa kayto membo ko permitol kaytol nimbuko non-Gambian ID cards will be at the immigration level. Immigration level di more la million lanko la enata jala fa sabat la banko kan. So basically na osi bole fo kanjang. So ila doko nim famo ala doko siada bak and ay kumodo fo walam comme immigration nim famo bebe dending fenala mi lanko bebe department klingol ba niaje immigration department is nim famo doku la bunda jamal la beje million lanko bunda aba mararim felnala ka jeko e banku dingol sab anim fem binala ba sabata la nyim banku kan ila doko ila kayti ko bebe deni wo fenko lala wo bunda lala aw be wolo fo kan jante.
Okay, Samu, thank you so much. We will just take that in fuller as well, and then we...
Okay, ajarama Piaro ko osi halano ko do dum woni because ko lamda nodo hono ligge immigration no yarata bayri biida be lardi luwa kollirdo hono ligge immigration no yarata o dum sa laari hande ligge immigration do burdo hewde dole dum ko woni hodumen ko minen deynda dongal largol bibbe leydi Gambia be nadgol mu'en e funtugol mu'en he leydi ndi hebe gandanda hoore ma be gona bibbe Gambian kono be he der leydi walla be pala arde e der leydi bari sa wi ta yimbi mami non ko minen deyna kulle kerol ko wiite ko boda kerol Gambiangol ko immigration deynda dum ta ari ndara titima okkirgol kaytiji leydi ni ko minen immigration deynda dum den ko way non in kaytiji sa laari minen tambi immigration ton di wadi caldi hoore nde ko wotere ɗum woni directeur général kono sa laari ɗi waɗi calɗi saldu fof jogii marɗo ɗum wonɗo ko yeeso mumen sa laari okkirgol kaydiji ɗi ɗon ko sengo processing woni ko wiyete ko processing ɗum woni liggagol kaydiji ɗi sengo side processing kamen ɓe jogii assistant directeur général gonɗo hoore gon sengo ɗon he less muɗum noon keɓa commissionna processing he less on keɓa sukaɓe mum liggotoɓe ko noon woni ko feccirako he on sa laari ɗon processing ɗon a yiyat wondema tawa kamen gokkirta ko yata koye passeport on ɗum saldu ɗon okkirta ko yata koye ID card Gambia sa laari to sengo hoɓɓe toon kamen gokkirta residential permit kamen gokkirta aliens card kamen gokkirta non Gambian ID card ɗum fof ko sengo processing woni nden ko hollirgol wonnema yo hunde fof ɗi waɗina calɗi ni pour ko wawta wemnu liggue amen ko wawta wemnu liggue o ta hunde fof ɗi yaare e lawol ɗi tega e dow lawol o wi ɗum sa laari fotani ɗon immigration gonga sa laari kala no liggue amen o yeeɗu komin peccu ɗum pecce min mbaɗi ɗum mbaɗ ɗum calɗi ko wawta won ta liggue o mbo yaari no foti yarude ni liggue o mbo yaari no foti yarude ni ta neɗɗo fof mbo jogui ko nangui heɗo rewanta ɗum ta tampere ala ta buɓɓodiral waɗani a jarama.
Sudi, thank you so much. So also you've talked about a very important phase of what GID does. That is the issue of controlling the movement of people within, into and outside the country. And you've also highlighted that under that particular framework, you also have documentation procedures where you work on visas and entry clearances, ID cards, passports, and residence permits. Now, one also would want to know, let's say if you talk about border control, because people going into the country, living or whatever the situation is, also falls within the powers of the GID. How are you structured to be able to control people's movement within, outside, into the country in this occasion?
Thank you very much, PRO. Like I said, GID as a department have several units under it that function, have different functions. So the movement of people in and out is basically under the Migration Management Unit. Migration Management Unit is responsible of monitoring the movement of people in and out of this country and to make sure that people who are moving in and out are moved in an orderly manner. That is to say, you have to come into this country through an official entry point.
Okay.
All right.
So is the Migration Management Unit particularly a pillar on the GID, or does it have any other structures in this?
Yeah, of course, it is also a pillar. Sorry, it is under the Assistant Director General responsible for operations. Okay. So this is a unit under the operations pillar. So the operation is the pillar head for migration management. So there is where they are responsible to monitor the movement of people that are coming in and out. All right. So migration management unit is also headed by a commissioner. Now under the commissioner you also have other border patrol units, and also we have official border entry points where we have fixed all our officers to make sure that people who are coming into this country meet the entry requirements. All right. And if you are entering also, you must not circumvent the official entry points, because whoever does that, you are committing an offense. Because the law says that coming into this country you have to come through an official entry point and present yourself before an immigration officer who will assess you to make sure that you meet all the entry requirements to come into the country. And if coming in, they will stamp you and give you a control. All right. And these controls are different. As Gambia, part of the ECOWAS, that is the Community of West African States, we are also trying to implement the ECOWAS treaties and protocol. And one of these treaties and protocol is free movement of ECOWAS citizens within the community. All right. And at the point of entry, all ECOWAS citizens are entitled to be given 90 days to come into the country as visitors. So within this period, you are not entitled to do any work that is going to gain you an income, because you are a visitor. But at the end of your 90 days, if you still intend to stay, you have to report yourself to any immigration officer to regularize your status, to become a resident and who will be able to work in the country.
We'll be very interested to know what are the procedures you have to follow from that stage, but then we may not be able to discuss most of these things in today's episode. What we will do is to maybe host each of these units he's talking about to tell you what do they do in their operational life. But then I think it's important when you talked about the Migration Management Unit of GID and how does it also operate together with the Border Patrol Unit. And some may be asking, how is it possible that somebody can be from Senegal and come into the Gambia with documentations? And then that is what he's trying to clarify, that it has to be done through the Border Patrol Unit and also our border control over there. But then we will take you through more of these parts as we go further. We will just take the Mandinka translation from there.
Okay, yes. Na lamwelal mbal kontona na boss kamin foja wolam na fenkoti na doku Kenya kama ni ajibe Gambia Immigration Department ka fo nyami na boss ya fo no nyami wolam na doku nimfemo nga tala sidula let nga tala ni sidula jamal let nga tala into sidula jamal let so ni ajibe Migration Management Unit wolam MMUT wolam bundati mimba marari molla dungoni la finto la ni bankunka pour que doko sonyandi immigration ol bulu immigration o strategy le lo de milia jeko pour ka jeko bunda fembe duna ni banku kan bunda le beje nyanta jarla ne menna bunda follow momenti bodal lam so ni natra benala banku kan jang luwaya di ko pour mo fembe duna gambe jang benala ni bodal wolam entry point solde ando entry point sol ni ajibe ye tala sidula jamala to ye airport soto ye bal carol soto ena banko karo dol soto milan ko molka dunnan dula la giboro nyol kata daslami nyol ni dula kote ngol e be dunnan nan jela anu je ni be dunnan nan jela immigration ol be je milan ko mansa ye sindi o dula to kaje ko luntango fembe dunna banko kanjang e be jarla o dula la pour kaje ko ye admit ila admission o be den immigration ol la observation ol e be observe la kaje ko doko e minni kayto comme like itela dungo banko kan banko e minni kayto like kayto o kayto nyin ay trebulo kono andu regulation le beje andu wo regulation be mararo lo mi alonko na tara femmu 90 days ko la dite marila because let's say Gambia amu banko te mi alonko be ndolmu molete mi alonko banko te mi alonko ba anin ECOWAS be doko la ning ECOWAS la loi jamal beje nga subscribe la so yalo ni subscribe la loi dolla abuko le ko ni o luwale même fo betama la ni wala so nim fembe bola Africa jang Africa tundoto abe dunna nan Gambe jang andung ECOWAS banku dingolam e ka 90 days la diala bare wo immigration of fanang regulation la beje million ko instead of 90 days is a limited days dila let's say 29 days wala let's say 30 days yo dila priena dum banku kan ando wado kono ni a dila e manya na kelat moti mi ko benala ye sabati ye dunku kela mi alan ko doko e manya na kela o 90 days o kono luwa e mindi nyanta nala le sabati ye sabati comme lundangolo mi alan ko anata sabati la bruka tumando wati dantang fa o kola o 90 days o kono ni ajibe tumando ila fa sabati la o 90 days kola sina murung immigration wala be marara kaje ko sa yela fengo ila kaydo regle kaje ko ese doko ko ese ku dolke mi alan ko comme ese balu nyino ke kinne anin ko. So
before we talk about what happens after the 90 days has been elapsed, we will just have to discuss more units that GID also would possess. But then, so they can help us in the fuller translation of that part too.
Okay, ajarama siman ko yewtete goddo ha joni ko dum woni ko fa'iro ligge amen immigration nabe ko immiti ko do e hala ko halte ko dum woni kulle nattugol ngol bari minen bi'i wonde ma ko minen deyna kulle kerongol ko wiite ko frontière ji boda ko minen deyna kulle kerongol pour lartigol dum yimbe nattobe leydi men e puntobe ok dum don ne di yaadi he min gimmini saldu wondu darnadu ton to immigration biitendu MMU Migration Management Unit ko ben goni deynabe kulle dum kono benne e ley hore saldu o woni Commission of Operation on woni hore naajo mumen kono Migration Management Unit ne be tambi commissioner gondo yeso keynido dumen kamene ton to liggorde mumen to gondo yeso nanga mumen sa laari kamen kala natto leydi ndi do sikoro fronki sikoro laade de dipporo to garduda ko mande wado airport do yimbe ame be don e mbawma nangube lamdo ma ko dum garanda gambe hodo woni lawol maada si woni ka biddo jibinande e Africa gaga mani hirnaange gay ko wiite ko West Africa ECOWAS member state kafu dari dum pour wada leede hirnaange Africa de fo gona hunde wore biira dum ECOWAS si woni an leydi man ko hen tawa sa yottima airport walla frontière gito tibe man wokka stamp o pour nata ko balde capande jeenay be gokarama dum woni lebbi tari kono hen der en lebbi tari be gokkirani ma on stamp pour njaa sa yottima ra bimbi puddo a ligge on stamp o kadima pour bawa liggo on ko okkuma pour nata leydi ni gona kodo kollira wonde ma ka kodo gona kodo kono ligge tawaka si woni wonde ma woni neddo mo ganduda hoore ma no immori caggal leyde walla no immori dulaaje de ganduda hoore ma wona e der leyɗele men Afrique hirnaange gay ko wiite ko outside amabu ECOWAS block don sa ari ko balde capantari be mbay okku balde capantari be mbay okku balde 14 be mbay okku balde jeeddi be mbay sa okku nyalande wotere pour ɓe mbawa laarde an ka neɗɗo si fawn si nden yawti ana wawi yiltade to immigration jaa ɓeydoya wongol ma ngol sano faala ɓoyde gay si lewru wotoru ndu walla balɗe ɗe ɓe gokkumaɗe ɗen balɗe jawri ana wawi yiltade immigration jaa ɓeydoya te ngol ɓeydugol ne foof ko woodi ko tegere he dow muɗum ko luwa o tege dow mum ko foti yoɓede.
It's interesting. Interesting. I think a lot of people out there may not know exactly the nature that you work that you do and how usually do you operate in regards to controlling people that come into this country. But then without going deeper into that particular perspective, you have initially mentioned that side by side the Immigration Act of 1965, you're also empowered by the 1977 Alien Registration Act itself. So specifically, what powers are you given within that particular legislative framework at the GID to operate on?
Thank you very much, Piero. Like I said earlier on, we are here to launch the program today. As time goes on, all these units will have their experts coming here to talk to the general public in details. Yeah. So we are just here to give people what they expect in these programs that are coming in every fortnight. Okay, so every fortnight. But like you said, the Aliens Registration Act, this is a legislative framework that has empowered Gambia Immigration Department to be able to register every non-Gambian. Okay. By the book, the aliens here in the act is defined as everyone who is a non-Gambian in this country. Non-Gambians are defined as aliens, right? So that means if you come as a non-Gambian, this act has guided GID on how to register those non-Gambians that are coming into this country and wanted to stay, establish and work. All right. So and in the act, we have also several stakeholders like the local authorities, the alcalos, the chiefs. All these things has a stake in the Aliens Registration Act. And in fact, not only the alcalos and the chiefs, but even the landlords. Okay. The landlords has a role to play. The employers has a role to play. All these people has a role to play. But like I said, the experts will come from each of these offices. So
in essence, you are saying that the Registration Act does not only empower GID to work towards aliens of registration.
Exactly.
But again, you also have to work with employers, alcalos, and other authorities.
The landlords, the premises owners, because like you say, we have series of porous borders. Gambia has more porous borders than official entry points. Okay. So some of the people will come and circumvent all these people, all these official entry points. But even though you circumvent those places, you still go into a compound. Okay. Somebody will host you. So all those people also has a responsibility to play as far as the management of immigration is concerned. Yeah, but
intriguingly, you said that the alien in context refers to non-Gambians.
Non-Gambian, yes.
But then you've earlier mentioned that you issue ID cards, you issue non-Gambian ID cards, and you also issue resident permits.
Exactly.
So if aliens are non-Gambians, what documents, who are you given these documents that we've mentioned initially?
Yes, like I said, non-Gambians also fall into different categories. Okay. All right. So the residence permit is issued to both non-Gambians, but in different categories. We have ECOWAS citizens are only issued residence permit, and they have a different charges. All ECOWAS community citizens are issued a residence permit A and B, depending on which category you find yourself in. Okay. And then we also have non-ECOWAS citizens. These are the people who will be first issued aliens ID card, then that will qualify them to have a residence permit. Well, so the non-Gambian ID card,
two cards in this
occasion. Yes, non-ECOWAS citizens are issued two documents. That is aliens card and also residential permit. And the residential permit also, like I said, we have A and B. All these things are different categories.
But how about the non-Gambian?
The non-Gambians are also issued to other citizens that come from countries that have that bilateral relationship with the Gambia government. It is based on memorandum of understanding. One of those countries are Senegalese. Senegalese doesn't pay residence permit, but we issue them a non-Gambian ID card. And this is way cheaper than the residence permit. And then we also have the Bissau Guineans, the Ivorians, the Sierra Leoneans. These are all based on memorandum of understanding between the Gambia government and the government of those countries. The same price that Gambians are paying, their citizens are paying here, is the same price that Gambians are also paying in their country. So that's based on memorandum of understanding.
Agreement.
Exactly.
I think that's clear. You've highlighted what kind of documents are given to the non-Gambians. And he said non-Gambians come in different contexts. We're talking about those from the ECOWAS bloc and those from the non-ECOWAS bloc. So I was a bit confused when he said non-Gambian earlier, but I think I am able to understand the residence permits are given to people that are in ECOWAS, or non-ECOWAS, not out of the 4 countries that he has mentioned initially for non-Gambian ID card. Sabu may just give us the brief summary of that before we...
na boss kamin fojang na la moylal kamin foja wolam na doko to kom fonya fonun jam nyamin komanto wolam na doko be loring natra immigration wala doko bunda jamal la beje, and then niya jibe na bunda doto na Alien Registration Act mi alonko, it was enacted in 1975 1977 la foroto wolam na fenkoto na buko nyinto Alien Registration Act of 1977 ay mol mi alonko kana banku kan jang wolam kabona banto do kana sabati gambe jang dol I mean buko mi yitande comme alien wala moti mi alonko bota lato ate gambe dingoti wolam alien wolam luntangote nim fam wolam luntangote, and then niya jibe luntangol men kana sabati gambe jang loi nying ye tala into sidla jamal lato dol beje wol falta within the ECOWAS block wala multi-million ko bota West Africa tundo jamma fangola dol beje wol mambona West Africa tundo wol bota nan dula dol lato Africa tundo dula dol, and fem mi alon ko be nala gambe jang la fa sabati la jang kayto la beje loi mendi immigration la ko nyanta o kayto la dila o molla, so basically aka memfo nim fem nada kayto kadi nyanta dile la kayto min nyanta dile immigration nyanta min dile la price la beje depending on ite mari la bodula to ni bota ECOWAS janna specific price la beje mi alon ko aning modol mi alon ko bota Syria tundol do kada Tunisia wol, because wol mambo West Africa jang o price o men ka di wala aning mi alon ko bo ECOWAS tundol jamma fon la fatatal abole foka, because min ka tene ko nyam, because memorandum of understanding mole wala sort of like Gambia banko wala sort of ning ECOWAS banko la do like Guinea Bissau nyol kada Mali nyol kata Senegal nyol, they fallen within the ECOWAS block, ECOWAS community citizens. So ni wol nata, we give them specific privileges.
I think that part is important to highlight, that in the ECOWAS block we have to also observe certain protocols that are very much important to observe our Africanness in this case. But then, like you say, Tunisia is not in West Africa too, so they would have to fall within the other framework as well. Sute, we can just take...
Ajarama Piaro, yewtere ɓuri welde ha joni ɗon ɗo komin garta yewtere ɗo titi mon ko ɗum woni ko fayi to banggal hoɓɓe ngaroɓe ɓe gimmora caggal leyɗe walla ɓe gimmora leyɗe mumen ɓe ngara ɓe jooɗo Gambia ɗo ɓe ngara koɗɗugal walla ɓe ngara ɗo pour ɗaɓɓugol liggey. Eyyi sa laari liggey amen luwa gokkuɗomin on doole pour min mbawa liggode wallude ɓen ɗon min liggo ama kulle ɓen ɗon ne ko ɗum woni ko wiyete ko Aliens Registration Act of 1977 on okki min ɗen doole. Ko hombo woni alien? Sa nani tubako wima alien rek koye ɗemgal tubako ɗum woni wondema kala mo gandanɗa hoorema jomum wona ɓiɗɗo jibinande leydi Gambia ka koɗo, ko ɗum woni koɗo. He luwa he ko ɗum ɓe nangiri koɗo ɗum wiyete alien. Joni ɓe hoɓɓe garoɓe ɓe sa laari liggey mumen wona immigration taw wawta ɗum nab, liggey mumen wona immigration taw wawta ɗum nab, because sa laari nder leydi Gambia keeri men ɗi fof no ɗi mbayni, keeri ɗi gandanɗa hoorema ko ɗin laamu ɗum darni ɗo waɗi ɗon polisaɓe immigration ɓe woɓɓe pour ɓe mbawa nangude jiiya mbawa feeje walla aynude yimɓe nattoɓe e nder leydi men he ɗi kewani. Kono laabi kewɗi ne ɗi goodi ko wiyete ko porous borders ɗi gandanɗa hoorema laamu ɗum fawal ɗon yimɓe tawon te a wawa nattude e nder leydi Gambia ta yiidani e police. Ko ɗum waɗi ha kulle aynugol ɓen ɗon ko bili jomaɓe galle en ɓe hen tawa he ngol aynugol. An joma galle o sa heɓi koɗo mo ganduɗa hoore mo iwi leydi wonde ha ari ɗo jippima galle maɗa ko laawol ɗima okki pour cikka koɗo ma naɓa ɗum to galle jarga mbiya ɗum ode ko koɗo dula kaari o immode jarga o winda ɗum yara noon ha yetto sefuro yara noon ha yetto immigration. Ko nden kollita wondema si jarga joma galle mbo hen tawa, jarga mbo hen tawa, sefuji ɗi hen tawa, immigration ne ɗi hen tawa. Nden ɗum ko liggey mo ganduɗa hoorema kala gonɗo ɓiɗɗo Gambia ka ɓiɗɗo Gambia ano tawa he o liggey pour yigol wondema hoɓɓe garoɓe ɓe enen ɗumen mbawi wadde no hunde ni, enen ɗumen mbawi wadde no sangallo ni, pour koɗo kala anda ko foti ko wadde, kollen ɗum ko foti ko wadde ko leydi men ndi jaɓi koye ko leydi men ndi jaɓani ko. Wi kam sa immima ɗon hayto banggue okkirgol kaydiji to, eyyi kaydiji ɗi pecca pecce ko yara pecce tari. Fecco iɗogo gon wiyete aliens card e residential permit. Hoɓe gokkere aliens card e residential permit ɗum woni yimɓe ɓe gandanɗa hoore maɓe ɓe jii'aka e nder leydi Afrique hirnangue gaayi, ene leydi men africa hirnangue gay ɓe jiyaka gay ɓen joɓata alliance card e residential permit yimɓe jiyaɓe ɓe ganduɗa hoorema ɓe jiya e nder africa kono mani africa gay ga hirnangue gay ɓen ko residential permit tan ɓe joɓata kono e nder woɓɓe ne jiyaɓe e nder ama africa ɗo ɓe mbaddi laamu mumen ɗumen laamu gambiyar ɓe mbaddi junngo he faandu ɓe paamodiri ɓe nangodiri ɓe guytana ko ɓe poti ko yobde he kaydi ɓen mbaɗana kaytol pewgol ngol wiitegol non gambian ID ko hoɓen goni ɗen leyɗe ɗum woni sénégal guinée bissau sierra leone he côte d'ivoire ko ɗen leyɗele nayi woni paamodirɗe ɗe leydi men ɓe guytan ɗumen koɓe poti ko yobde ɓen ɓe joɓa kaytol mbiyetengol non gambian ko ɓen joɓata koye nder leydi gambia
I think
ko
it's
ɗon
important.
yimɓe gambia ɓene joɓata leyɗe mumen.
Yes, thank you so much. I think it's very clear that the Aliens Registration Act is where the empowerment of the non-Gambian ID card and also residence permit will fall in. As they clearly stipulated, we issue non-Gambian ID cards, resident permit and also alien cards as well. And these are given in occasions depending on where do you come from and in which particular protocol are we supposed to observe. But then, before we wrap up, you've also mentioned the issue of the Refugee Act of 2008. And I think it might be intriguing if we do not spell out what exactly is that act about. And then how does GID also implement that framework in its mandate as well? So tell us, what is the Refugee Act all about?
Thank you very much, PRO. Like I said, Refugee Act of 2008 is also a legislative framework that guides the operation of GID in terms of refugee management. All right, refugees, like we all know, these are people who are running away from their country because of safety purpose. It's either by persecution or because there is war. They look for a refuge. Upon leaving their country, international law, that Gambia is also a signatory, that is the United Nations Convention of 1951. Gambia is a signatory to that. These people who are fleeing away from conflict, when they come into your country, you don't have the right to deny them from entry. Okay. These people you have to accept them, you bring them in, and then there's a process that is called RSD, Refugee Status Determination. That process is what the GID follow through a unit, that is Gambia Refugee Commission. Gambia Refugee Commission is a commission that is headed by an immigration commissioner with other immigration officers that are responsible of refugee matters. So the Refugee Act guide them, the processes of how to administer these people, how to protect their rights, and how to make sure that they settle here and reintegrate here. So that process is guided by Refugee Act of 2008. So the refugee status is there because not everybody who comes directly you are automatically a refugee. Okay. People can come and claim to be a refugee when they are not. That is why they have to go through that status determination. That is also a process, and they also have a board of committee and a board members. So after all the processes, the commission will pass their files to the board, and if the board approved, then they will now issue them a refugee ID card. Okay. So and this refugee ID card has given them all rights to basic amenities in this country. They have right to go to school, they have right to stay, right to work, through that refugee ID card. So, but during the process, before they are determined to be a refugee, they are called asylum seekers. Okay. So they will be seeking asylum. The process will go, but in an event that your request is not approved, right, you still have the opportunity to appeal. Okay.
So we would be very much interested to know exactly how does the commission work.
I don't want to go in details because we have experts in all these units. Okay. So as program is unfolding, each of these units will come here and talk to the general public, on their mandate, their functions.
But I'm still interested. You've talked about non-Gambians earlier, yes, and you said they issued with residence permits and non-Gambian ID cards. Yes. And you also said people that come in as refugees are given refugee cards. Yes. One may still want to know what differentiates the non-Gambian ID card from the refugee ID card. If a refugee comes from a different country and is coming in, I was thinking you're going to give them a non-Gambian ID card in this case.
No, that's not the case, Piero. Like I said, these are people who are running away from conflict. Okay. Most of them don't live out of their own will because they are looking for a safety. That is why they are under that international protection. Okay. So when they come, it is an obligation to all countries that are signatory to the 1951 Convention to accept them in your country. Okay. And we also have United Nations High Commission for Refugees. Okay. that is as their office in Dakar, but in close contact with the Gambia Commission for Refugees. So their ID card is issued on gratis. They don't pay for it. Non-Gambian ID cards, you pay for it, but for refugees, documents that are issued to them, the UNHCR will be responsible for any cost that will be involved.
So it's fair to say that the refugees are seen as special people in this case.
Exactly, because these people are looking for a safety. They're running from a conflict. Some might be from a political, intimidation. Some through a persecution. So they run away from there to look for a safety. So wherever they go, their status has to be determined. And if it is proof that what they are claiming is right, then you have to issue them that ID card, and it is issued free.
I would be very much interested to know that there are different set of people that live within this country, because in some occasions you hear people say we have so many foreigners in the country, like they're given ID cards, they're given all sorts of documents, and I think people do not even understand that there are different dimensions of people that live within this country. It will be quite key for us to discuss each of these units and how do they operate, to be able to at least set more lights onto how these documents are also done. But then we will just leave that for a different day, as we will have the commission to also discuss with us some of those concerns. Sambu, you may take us through.
Na lamoylal na boss be mem fo kanja wala na doko Kenya kamani ajibe immigrational nim femmo na doko farara andu bunda jama labeje ni nata na fenko do na refugee act wala refugee act mi alonko it was established ya safet buko nyin safet na 2008 la mu refugee act mu buko de mi alonko nim femmo mol mi alonko botana banko dradol do kana borina kana gambe tumando fitino le wulindije wala let's say for example mantoro dole wulindi la banko do nata bori banko bonna kana dun Gambia pour kana sabati jang wala ka dulañi mi an ko be sabati la pour ke la baluo tankande o doko fana be den immigrational level andum immigrational banko loi ya sembo dila pour ka jeko nyimmo li nata ye fenke comme like ye terema nim famu ni be sularin kaitola e be application of safela to immigration walam through that asylum seeking ka file nyama asylum seeking ke they have what is called refugee status determination or refugee status determination okono immigration ka mari e ka kesen ka je ko fa mari molti mi alon ka nyanta refugee status to Gambia so wo do ko kono di ba kesen na ne aje ko nyimo molti mi alon ka aborta fitinola anata Gambia lafta sabatila ba jibe la natara loi ya di andung ay mimfo wo mu kuti mi alon ko alankena mata andung kuti mi alon ko sahyada be ID card di la mi alon ko ID card fanan ka sembo di ala ka sabati Gambia asa do ko ke asa ko rañi ni no asa tarno dulado comme banku dingol ka right sol mil soto o mari se o right sol soto refugee kaito ni o ditale baja bo sembo soto en banku kon so baja la o fenko dobe je o process ko no dobe je ka apply le ay tara o system ko na la status man ema determine comme ka je ko refugee la mbolam refugee status determination on yinto ni na mari la fenko ni man determine ka je ko comme am refugee de abetal o process on yinko asylum seeking process on yinko for ni ya determine ya la kaytol dial so and then ya jibe Gambia fana mudlalte mi alonko nim femu we subscribe to laws like the International Convention 1951 Convention of the United Nations mi alonko mo dunia be lualde so banko be lending ñing loi la ay loi ñing subscribe abu blade minan ko banko ñim fanam ba jela ko fem botanam fitinola nata dunne la banko kan immigration ol ba jekal ba jela ko o mari min nyanta to yake comme ka jeko ya mari mako
so much I think it's pretty clear. It is only unfair that you're not speaking in Wolof today, and then the fanas there wouldn't be able to know exactly what we are saying. But in our subsequent shows, we do promise to make sure that we also integrate the Wolof language in today's program as well. Today we can hear from the fullest
okay, ajarama Piaro ko yewterde because ndemi jotti do ko caldi min bi on liggey amen immigration no office amen to caldi wadi salnu mi jewtani do ko dum wadi yimbe dokbe be hare gimmori leydi mu en walla dokbe be ko gandanɗa hoorema taƴam ɓeram walla ɓe dogi ñaawegol walla ɓe dogi ɓayre kamɓe ko ngol ɗo ɓe nangi ɓeeɗo nangi ɗo ɓe gondani hunde wara ko yara e banggal politique ɓen dokɓe garɓe leydi men mbiteɓe réfugiés ɓayre sa minen kala kulle ɗum ɗon neɗɗo ko ɗin ɗon neɗɗi tawa e luwaji binnanoɗi ɗi in 2008 pour okkugol ɗum immigration pour ɓe mbawa ɗum liggorde kala hombo woni dokɗo hare kala gimmorɗo leydi muɗum ari leydi Gambia ta wona belaɗe mum ardi walla ta ko fitna waɗi leydi mumen to hare waɗi leydi mumen to taƴam ɓeram o dogdi ɗum o ari walla mo fonno ñawede o softi toon o dogi o ari walla kam ɗo nangi ɗo kulle politique ɓeyɗa ɗo nangi ɗo wona wotere on taƴam ɓeram waɗa o doga o ara ko ɓen mbiyete réfugiés ɓenne si ɓe ngari gonga koye leyɗe men he ɗo ɓe jiiya he leyɗe cekkuɗe ne jiiya ɓe ngari leydi men ɗo sa laari si ɓe jottima ko ito komin guidoto ko wat because hoɗumen a wawata ɗumen had nattude sa laari leydi Gambia ndi jaɓi okkodiri jungo e fandu he nangi luwaji goɗɗi moƴƴinaɗi bili ko yata e hitande 1951 ko wiyete ko UN Convention of Refugees of 1961 Gambia jaɓi ha signé ɗum noon wi'i wondema kala mo gandanɗa hoore man dogɗo hare walla mo dogi ko gandanɗa hoore ma ko taƴam ɓeram men walla mo hulani hoore mum ɗum waɗa o dogi acci leydi mum nde ari leydi maɗo a wawata ɗum had nattugol sa yettima o wi'ima wonde min de ko ɗum woni ko addi kam ko ɗum dogmi walla ko hare woni sahara leydi amen ko ɗum woni ko dogmi walla ko o taƴam ɓeram siifa woni leydi am kulle politique walla kulle goɗɗum ko ɗum woni ko dogdi kam ko garmi min e ɓeygura walla min tan goto ano ɗum foti maninde windude wondema ko neɗɗo dogɗo hare minen tambi office mbiyeteɗo GCR Gambia Refugee Commission on Refugee Commission e minen toon tambi Commission of Immigration gonɗo hoore naajo toon sa heɓino ɓen ni sa windi ɓe happari ko ɓen ko toon naɓete on office toon si ɓe jottima ɓe mbaɗan men ko wiyete ko RSD ɗum woni Refugee Status Determination pour ɓe mbawa hollude wondema ode wiyo ko dogɗo hare ndaw ko gonga ko dogɗo hare ndaw o dogani hare ɗum laare lartinde seeɗe ha laaɓa si woni ko gonga ɓe mbawa ɗum okkude ID card si ɓe jeeyi ha ɓe gandi wondema gonga ko dogɗo hare ɓe gokkat ɗum ko wiyete ko Refugee ID card te on Refugee ID card gokketeɗo ne hay mbuɗa ittata hen kono si woni wondema ari a haali an kulle ma cuwa labde ɓe cuwa jabde wondema a wawa ɗumen hollude wondema gonga ka refmani ka dogɗo hare ɓe gokkama kayitol mbiyetego ngol attestation ngol kayitol attestation ngol ɓe gokkatama pour mbawa hebde ngol kayitol mbawa yilotade ngol kayitol e nder leydi pour jiiɗo ɗum foof wawa ande ode ko dogɗo iwore saare mum kono ɓe mo GCR ɓe mbara kulle muɗum eyyi on jarama.
All right. I was at some point going to say Jatuka Falako Wanangiga, like they would usually say. But then when you say Jatuka, I was like, okay, maybe he's going to that end. But then you had to not continue on that part. But then also, I think it was a very interesting discussion. You've talked about most of this instrument that GID is implementing, and that guides the functions of the GID in how it operates. I'm sure people have more questions now they will still want to confirm, because when we talk about ID card, it becomes a concern to everybody. If we talk about passport, it becomes a concern. If we talk about alcalos, chiefs, and landlords also having their part to play, it becomes a question of how should they. But then all these things will be brought here for you to understand the fact that GID's work is quite daunting, and then you have a part to play in the work that you're going to do. But before we take a leave of you today, I would just want to know that the GID we've been observing has been going through so much transformation. And then this transformation had been seen by some people within the public. But then if you could just share with us briefly, what changes have occurred in GID through these reforms we're talking about?
Thank you very much, Piero. Like you said, the transformation in GID is not hidden to anyone. Since the advent of this new administration in 2017, the Gambia government has done what is called security sector assessment. Okay. Through this security sector assessment, there were recommendations for security sector reform. Security sector reform also has highlighted certain key areas that compel all security institutions to reform within their context. So to tailor down the SSR into the GID, the first thing that the recommendation stated is most of the securities in this country are operating on laws that are outdated, are obsolete. They don't meet the current realities of our security operations. So the all the security institutions are tasked to go back and start embarking on reform process. So GID in particular, first we started to introduce what we call GID strategic plan, which was enacted in 2019 to 2024. It's a 5-year strategic plan. It is the first of its kind that GID has developed a document that will guide their operations. Apart from the strategic plan, in 2021, GID also secured a fund from European Union through DCAF, that is Geneva Center for Security Sector Governance. All right. So through that, the GID also established or enacted or convened a thematic working group, that is TWG, which comprises of 15 immigration officers and also an international consultant and the national consultant.
What was the outcome of this particular
This team, work in consultation with the DCAF and the consultants to first go and review the GID Act of 1965 and highlight all the gaps that feel challenges to our current operations. After the review, the team meet on periodic basis to draft a new bill. This bill has gone through all consultations to the national council from all the stakeholders that have the stake in.
It would be fair to say that the reforms at the GID begins from documentation in this case.
From the legal frameworks.
Okay, interesting.
We started from the legal framework. Our legal frameworks, like I said, 1965. The realities in 1965 are not definitely outdated.
So we'll be very much interested still to know what happened after that reform you were talking about, and then how is it able to save the GID's activities. But then that will be again another talk for a different day. Perhaps we will just take Sambu briefly.
Let me just complete this point. So the bill, like I said,
okay, so I know you want to talk about the bill, but then I want us to have a special day, perhaps to discuss about the bill in this case.
Yes, like I told you earlier, we also have the planning unit that will come and tell people in brief or in details
what is done.
What is done when it comes to legal and regulatory frameworks, the policy development.
We'll be very prepared to hear that from the planning unit and how are they able to shape the GID's image at this particular point. But then, just before we wrap up, Sambu, you may just briefly give us highlights of those. And
okay, na boss be mem fokan jan na lamoylal wala na department oto wala Gambia Immigration Department yaji be falin jamal la kereje mi alon ko ay nyato ta jamal filana nyato ta la fina na doko kam karola mi o be sabu wala min sababu ta wala na loi bukol min femu na loi bukol ngol ta nga jibe sita nga jeko nyimu bukol da timila alon ko draft kabrin 1965 o bukol be larim be do ko ke kan ni o bukol la anu ni ajibe amu kuti mi alon ko anina current realities manta so masakunda la SSA wala na security sector assessment kabri o keda o boring ko la nata nga security sector reform ke security sector reform kabri o keda e nata recommendation jamal bondi ka jeko departmental pour yetano nyato fo ku jamale tara larim pour ka jeko falingo eke pour doko se tano nyanta tala nyame mi nata o sonande mbul wolam na bukol development jamal keje like immigration for example mi adina transformation jamal ketaje wolam na 2019 ngajibe na strategic plan on safe o strategic plan on nata kel na nimfemo na dokuran na taram bulkoti nemba kuku kela na consultation o kake o bukolde o buko nata ku jamale sonendi immigration nata transformation jamala fena nimfe mo nyato ta jama so to be because of our strategic plan on
thank you so much Sute, you can just give us briefly that account before we take a leave.
Okay, a jarama Piaro ko yewtere ko do ko min batidi ko do yewtere dum woni kulle wiyo ko dum bili immigration fuddi ha joni dey no duubi jawridi o yii ko gandanɗa hoore ma ɗi toon wayli ko heewi waylima toon ko ɗum woni ko wayli ɗum ko oydum nde ɗum laamu ɗum ari laamu keson ɗum ari nde yetti koɓe gidi wadde ɓe mbi o ɓayri sa laari ɗi liggorji laamu kewɗi ɗi gandanɗa hoore ma ɗiɗɗo kayri ɗiɓe defte mumen ɗiɓe liggorta ɗe ɗen defte goɗɗe ɗe binda bele 1965 ɗume han ko duuɓi 60 nden ta laari ko wonno ko ɗin duuɓi 60 aawo he ko woni ko han ko tuba ko ɓe mbira gonɗi current realities of today's life wona hunde wotere nden ɗum waɗa ɓe mbi o joni no ɓe dar ko hono ɓe mbawata wadde ha ɓe mbawa wallu yimɓe pour kala defte mumen ɗe ɓe liggorta ɓe mbawa weccede e nder ɗum waɗi SSA o ari security sector assessment ɗum woni laargol to liggorte laamu to woni ko polisaɓe woni ko immigration walla dulaje goɗɗe ɗe pour ɓe mbawa natto e nder mumen ɓe keɗa ɗumen ɓe keɗa ha ɓe kande ɓe mbawa andu ko ɓe tolni he hono ɓe mbawata nattirde ɓe mballa ɗumen nde ɗum setgol ngol foof waɗa ha paari on tuma ɓe gari ɓe mbaɗo e SSR on SSR woni hoɗumen security sector reform ono liggotoɓe sengo daɗagol to foof sengo laamu to daɗotoɓe foof kono ɓe mbawata ɓe jiiro toon ko ganduɗa hoore ma ɗi foti weccayde kono hono ɓe beccirtan ko hono woɗɗe fadde ko an beccen ɗum ɗon ɗum woni dat security sector reform o ɓe mbaɗi ɗum ɓe becci ɗum. Minen immigration wi on minen immigration min mbaɗoy ɗum ha min pari e duuɓi jeego ɓaawo ko wi 2019 immigration funtini deftere wiyetende SP on SP amen ɗum woni strategic plan. On strategic plan nden deftere nde ganduɗa ko ɓiɓɓe immigration bindi ɗum nde winda ha pari nden deftere han woni deftere nde ganduɗa hoorema nde ayna nomin porini liggor hengol lawol min pori ɓangsi mine mbaɗa liggami hoɗo min pori waɗ hoɗo min woni min porani waɗ ɗo law nden deftere noon ko duuɓi nayyi duuɓi joyi ko rowani ɗo huuɓi hikka mine gara e sansude wonde min ɓeyda min gadda heeretirimam min daara ko ganduɗa hoorema wawde naɓirde liggey amen o yeeso wiyo si ɗon iwitirimam min moƴƴini deftere wonde par ce que sa laari defte immigration ɗe foof liggorteɗe ɗe Nationality and Citizenship Act, Aliens Registration Act, e GID ɗi fof ko gandanɗa hoorema ko duuɓi capanɗe jeegom duuɓi capanɗe jowe ko fawi ɓaawo joni min jooɗi min liggode mani saldu UN wiyeten ɗum DICAF the Geneva Convention mani noon Geneva office o min jooɗode mun office mbiyeteɗo o DICAF ɓe balli min ɓe gaddani min ɓe ɓangi yimɓe immigration 15 ɓe ngari ɓe ɓangi woɓɓene ɓe pawti ɗumen e dow mumen ɓe gaddi yimɓe ɓe ganduɗa hoorema ɓe keeɓi gandal e windugol luwaji pour ɓe mbawa min wallude ɓe balla min deftere ɗe ganduɗa hoorema wawat min aynu ta koko woni ko han yaagole aduna he ko ɗum ligge amen o fawore dow mum ta min bopodirani a jarama.
I think that's quite it. We've run out of time now, and then I think it's important that we take a leave. But perhaps before we take a leave, OC, as the OIC of community engagement, I would just want to say, what are your final words to the followers out there?
Thank you very much, PRO, and also thank you to our viewers. First, I will take this opportunity to thank the Director General and his co-command and the entire staff of the GID for giving us the opportunity to come to this studio and talk to the general public on the services we have. I will also thank the management and staff of MTA Gambia for according us this opportunity on gratis. Right, and then I will also encourage the followers to be following this television station on every fortnight, Tuesdays from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m., where you'll have immigration experts from different units to come here and talk to the general public on the services they have and the responsibility of everyone in terms of immigration management. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chief Superintendent Musa M. Fati from the Gambia Immigration Department, together with Inspector Suleiman Sambu and Sute Biba. Now, you have concerns as to how can you get your ID card, what process do you have to follow, and who do we have to provide an ID card for? Or you want to travel and want to find out how can you get a passport? Or are you a non-Gambian that comes into this country and want to get your documentation procedures? You're away, still want to come to the Gambia to enjoy your tourism time, get some time to enjoy. How do you get your visas and your entry clearances? Whatever situation that you want to know, the GID Talkshow on the forum of MTA Studios here will present to you very interesting discussions where you'll get to know how do you operate and what work do you provide to the services of the public out there. Do stay tuned with us every fortnight on Tuesday from 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. as we have interesting discussions with you on MTA Studios. Till we come back to your waves, I was your host, Siman Lo. It's a bye from us.